We've got a short amount of time for questions. Any questions for John? It's the end of a long day. Hang on a minute, Graham.
Oh.
Graham Head, Eduserv. Just wondering if you'd reflect a little bit. You touched on museums and galleries community. One of their concerns in the past has been how to retain the notion of an authentic when you're living in a virtual, fragmented world. If you're standing in a place and looking at a picture of a place, which one are you paying attention to?
I'm not sure. Is that a kind of pragmatic?
Yeah, it's a notion of are we losing traditional notions of where authenticity lies?
Possibly, but I'm not actually sure. I mean, given the way that I'm portraying the evolution of ethics and expectations as being kind of fragmented and local, then that may be a concern that's specific to, I don't know, maybe an older generation or a more kind of establishment perspective, and maybe we're moving into an era where that wouldn't be seen as a legitimate, meaningful question. I don't know. I mean, there's a kind of practical answer to it to some extent, because earlier pictures I've got of context-aware mobile learning, again, you see people looking at their phones when they're in the Uffizi. So I think we learnt from that, and it's not, the idea is not to distract them from what's on the walls from the paintings. It's actually enrich it rather than replace it. But I think there's also, I mean, it also relates to actually something to do with this conference, which is to do with the relationship between the virtual and the real, and that's the way in which virtual communities, which I think were separate in cyberspace, are getting folded into the real ones. And there was a remark, I think, on the joining instructions saying, don't look at the live stream of the conference if you're in here. Now, there's an analogy there, and you see it with Twitter as well, that people are kind of twittering across and inside and outside. There's a kind of blurring of what's distinctly virtual and what's distinctly real. And several art galleries, I think, may have started with using online experiences to supplement the face-to-face visitor experience, and then thought, well, why don't we have a separate art gallery in cyberspace, as it were. So there's lots going backwards and forwards between those two spaces.
Any other questions?
Not as difficult as that one, please.
Okay, can we just say thank you to John? Oh, was there? I'm sorry.
Hi, just to maybe add a little bit to what you've just said about the, you know, in an art gallery looking at stuff. I mean, I was involved in a project before where I used to work, where we did this kind of in location sort of learning, and the fact of having the mobile device was to have supplementary information about the authentic thing that you were there, and actually assessments as well, so you could kind of check your knowledge, watch kind of abstract animations. It was a geology thing on the beach, so you could see how, you know, the cliffs had evolved over time and things. So it was actually enriching the experience as opposed to, you know. But the other question, which is kind of on the other end of the scale, was, you know, you mentioned something about in Sellafield collecting data on a mobile resource because it was easier to aggregate that data. And again, I was involved in a similar kind of thing where we did a trial run with some environmental scientists who were going down to this river to, you know, and I made their questionnaire. And the comment I got back from the lecturer, I always remember it. She said it wasn't a car, it was a mechanical horse, and that she preferred to have a piece of paper so they can make little sketches and, you know, additional notes and things like that. And so it was actually more restrictive in that sense, even though it did help the aggregation of the information.
Yeah, that's almost my tetherings remark, as it were, that, you know, what it gives with one hand, it maybe takes with the other, and we notice what it's giving us, and maybe we don't know notice what it's taking for us. I mean, I realise when you say that, actually, that the question about art spaces may be tied into a rather different debate about the status of art, if you like, and the status of galleries. you know, and we've moved into, in technical terms, maybe a Web 2.0 era where maybe the people in art galleries, it's more acceptable for them to be empowered to answer back, and for the art gallery not to be merely broadcasting at them, but there to be more of a dialogue and a community. And these technologies hopefully kind of facilitate that.
Okay, I'm going to wrap things up now. Can we just say thank you to John once again?